Hello, I'm Dr. Geoffrey Otieno from the Technical University of Kenya, where I am the director of the School of Chemistry, and I'm a member of the Kenya Chemical Society, where I sit in the governing council. So today's topic is going to cover how we address chemical security vulnerabilities. There are several ways we can address chemical security vulnerabilities, but we will focus on physical protection. Now, the objectives of this talk today is we'll define physical security systems, we'll identify the elements of an effective system, we'll go into some principles of security and introduce the implementation principle. So the physical protection system in terms of security is a system that is put in place to protect our assets. Now, we can define the terms security as technical and administrative controls that are put in place to deter, to detect, and to delay an adversary from accessing our assets, in this case, chemicals. The security is put in place because of malicious events. These events could be some theft, some strike, unauthorized access, or an attack on a facility. So what's the objective of security? Security simply intends to prevent acts of theft, sabotage that could result in unacceptable consequences. These unacceptable consequences could be death, economic loss, or even adverse media coverage for businesses. The main objective of security is really to protect or prevent these unacceptable consequences. So a good physical protection system is an integration of several items, and these are activities, programs, policies, and facilities that actually provide the required protection of our materials, but we can extend this protection even to information and equipment. It is not just the physical aspect of a good physical protection system, but several items are actually integrated within this physical protection system. The first wall in terms of physical protection is not a physical wall, and we call this deterrence. To deter is to discourage any adversary or a person with ulterior motives from attempting to access a facility or our chemicals in our laboratory or facility. Now, how do we deter or discourage adversaries from accessing our assets? This is normally done using signs. This could be warning signs. For example, beware of a dog already raises some red flags. An intruder would want to be careful in accessing such a facility. Visual technology, for example, in areas where there are cameras, it has been observed that human behavior actually changes. These cameras don't have to be real, they could also be fake. They still achieve some form of deterrence. Visible patrol is also a good way to deter. Now, there are three critical aspects for a good physical protection system: detect, delay, and response. Every physical protection system should incorporate these three different aspects to achieve an effective protection of our chemical assets. Now, for any physical protection system, it is important to consider how long it takes to detect an intruder, to delay the intruder, and to respond in case an intrusion occurs. The length of time that it takes to detect, delay, and respond determines how effective our protection system is. If that length of time is enough to stop the intruder from accessing the sensitive asset, then we have an effective physical protection system. But if that time to detect, delay, and respond is longer than the time that it will take the intruder to access the chemical or the sensitive asset, therefore It means that the intruder can access the asset and make it away without being captured or being stopped. So in detection is simply recognition of a situation occurring. And this can be achieved by using sensors or alarms. And human beings, of course, have also been used successfully as elements of detection. Now, after detection, we go into the aspect of delaying the intruder. In delaying, it's simply making it difficult for the intruder to get to the critical asset. And we achieve this by putting either physical barriers or human barriers before the intruder actually reaches our critical asset, which are our chemicals. In delay, the objective is to slow down the adversary so that the response team can intercept the intruder prior to the intruder making it away with the critical asset, which is the chemical. Now, increasing the number of delay elements actually increases the probability of the intruder being intercepted. The more delay elements in the adversary's path, and the more tools the adversary must bring to defeat these delay elements, slows down the adversary. We have several types of delay elements, broadly divided into two groups, and these are a passive delay element or an active delay element. So for example, a passive delay element would be locks on doors, among other things. This will slow down the access of a critical asset such as a chemical. An active delay element would be a guard at a given door and so on. They will not only deter, but they'll also delay the adversary from accessing the critical chemicals in our facilities. Now, as we develop a good physical protection system, it is important that we think about the path that the adversary will select. And typically, adversary will select a path that has the least resistance from any protection system that has been put in place. Also, the adversary can select a path based on distance, the shortest distance, or the amount of resources that are required to defeat the existing physical protection systems or measures in place. It is critical that we have in our minds the kind of path in our facility that an adversary might want to select, and in that we are able to put the right physical protection systems in the right paths that are possible to protect our critical assets. So to the intruder, the traverse time is what is critical on their end. And for the designers of the physical protection system, this has to be taken into consideration. And the traverse time is simply the time that it takes for the intruder to defeat our delay elements. And therefore, for us to act within this traverse time, it is important for us to consider how long the delay elements are going to provide or stop the intruder. And within this delay, we should be able to detect the intruder so that they don't reach our critical asset. Number two, we need to consider where are the detection systems, and are the detection systems going to provide us with enough time to actually respond to the intruder. So the guard force response, or the guard response, is an element in the physical protection system that is designed to counteract the intruder activity or intercept the intruder. Now, the time it takes for this interception should be less than the time it takes for the intruder to make it away with a chemical or the critical asset. After detection and delaying, our response team becomes an important part of the physical protection system. The duty of the response team is to counteract or interrupt the threat. Now, a timely response is critical, and this can be achieved by having on-site guards or external response forces. Now, an effective response includes the adversary being interrupted by the response force. It also includes the adversary being neutralized, but also it includes the response force is deployed effectively at a given facility. And this can only be achieved when there are drills or exercises on how to respond to an incident occurring at the facility or the lab. There are broadly 4 principles of physical security. We will look at them one by one, and the 4 are defense in depth, balanced security, some integrated security, and finally what we call the managed risk. Now, defense in depth includes providing physical protection layers, and other than that, there are administrative processes that have been put in place to provide the security. Now, the physical security works together with these administrative processes to provide us or give us an effective security to the critical asset. This defense in depth includes how to mitigate the consequences in a situation where the security system has been compromised. The physical security personnel, we call them the guard force. Then we will look at reliability of the existing protection elements and deterrent programs that are in place. The next principle is balanced protection. We look at how much are we putting in terms of physical layers, playing the scenarios of the adversary paths, and putting in place the right balance of physical protection systems in place to match the adversary scenarios to provide us with an effective protection for our critical asset. Now, balanced protection includes looking into several elements. Could be physical in terms of walls, the cameras, the access controls. Balanced protection also requires that we look at the kind of delays that these physical elements provide. And finally, balanced protection gives us the objective that we ensure that there is no weak path that can be used by the adversary to access our critical asset. The third principle is integrated security, and this means that we look at detection, we look at delay, and how we respond. Now, integrated security will assess or look at the detection, delay, and respond elements that are in place. The integrated security looks at how these elements will provide the delay that is required for us to effectively respond to any adversary to our critical asset. The final principle is really manage risk, and in this case we look at the cost of providing physical protection vis-a-vis the amount of protection that we are going to put in place. Now, the cost of security versus the risk is very important in terms of if the risk is too high, it will imply that we have to put in more physical protection elements in place, and if the risk is too low, we do not have to invest as much in mitigating or managing our risk. Therefore, manage risk really is looking at the cost of security versus the amount of risk that is posed to our facility or critical asset. So, of course, the benefits of reducing risk are that we work in an environment whereby we are not exposed to any attacks or ulterior motives from persons who might want to harm us. Now, reducing risk increases with increased security investment. If we put more money in security, it is likely that, but not always, we are going to reduce our risk. We can only achieve that if we do proper vulnerability assessments to know the weakest points and hence where we actually invest in reducing the risk. So in summary, all the security systems should attempt to prevent or to defeat an act that could give unacceptable consequences at a chemical facility. And security awareness is important, and an effective security system will depend on the integration of detection, delay, and response. But we should not forget about the element of deterrence. And finally, the principles of security that will lead to a more effective security system are the defense in depth, having some form of balanced security, having integrated security where we do detect, delay, and respond, and looking at the cost of security vis-a-vis the risk. Thank you very much.